Okay, John Cox, he's the only true conservative Republican. He hasn't donated to Jerry Brown or any of the other walking idiots in our state capitol. He's a businessman. He's not a politician, and he doesn't. I don't think he's got any Me Too's. I don't think he's that famous. We got some that got a Me Too. We got some that got a couple Me Too's. So he's endorsed by the California Pro-Life Council. He's anti-marijuana. He's going to talk about that. And he was one of the original members for the Club of Growth. I don't know if you remember that. I guess it's still viable. Yeah. And look, pray for some more Democratic candidates to enter the race, because the more we can delete that Democratic vote, the better chance he's got of getting in. All right, and let's all give a warm welcome to our Second Amendment defender, John Cox.
Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate that. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for that welcome. I really feel warm and fuzzy there a little bit. I will tell you that the only Me Too moment I have is on the cover of your program there, and that's my lovely wife. It's funny, I did an interview in Los Angeles, and my wife saw it and she loved it. She loved the emotion that I had and the passion I have for doing what I'm doing. And then she said, and I talked about my daughters. I have 4 daughters. And then she talked to me and she said, but you didn't mention me. So you're the first group I've spoken to since that little reminder I got. So from now on, every single time I'm mentioning my lovely wife, no question about that. Are you ready for a Republican governor in 2018? Yeah, let's do it. How about a governor that doesn't call us freeloaders? Is that a good idea too? I don't like deplorables. I don't like freeloaders. I like good Americans who believe in the Constitution, who believe in God, and who believe in the United States of America, huh? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I know you've got a little description there. My mission here today is to have you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, who I am, and most of all, how we can win. Because I'm not in this for kicks and giggles. I mean, I'm in this to win. I'm in this to turn this state around.
Like winners.
Absolutely. And we've got a great businessman president right now, who I support. And he's draining the swamp. Well, we need a good businessman governor who's going to clean out the barn in Sacramento. I like that. Have you all seen the commercial that we're running on Fox News now? The pigs? You like those pigs? All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. And I think it's real important to understand my motivations and who I am. And, I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. I've spent a lifetime as a conservative, too, and I'll explain that, too. But my activism and my desire for public service goes back to my mom. I mean, your mom really dictates a lot of your lives. Thank you, moms in the audience right now. And my mom was the major breadwinner in our family. My real father left when I was a baby and never saw him again. And my mom was a school teacher in Chicago. Anybody here from Chicago? Any other refugees? My mom was a school teacher on the south side of Chicago. I always say I grew up in Barack Obama's district while he was surfing in Hawaii. And I saw the corruption in the Chicago public school system. And that is what drives me every single day, is the remembrance, that memory of my mom and the fighting of the corruption. I mean, she had to deal with principals in the Chicago public school who should not have been there. I mean, they were there because they were cronies. They were friends of the alderman. That's how they got their job. And it really was damaging to those kids. And those kids were starting out behind the 8 ball to begin with on the south side of Chicago, let's face it. And the last thing they needed was to have a subpar education. Well, my mom retired to Fresno, right near here, I mean a little bit south of here a little bit. My little brother is still a small businessman in Fresno. My little sister is a nurse in Sacramento. My mom had 2 sisters that lived in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So I have a lot of roots in California. I finally moved out here 10 years ago. I say to people that it took me that long, 50 years, to save up enough money to buy a house here. But my friends told me that I moved to the only state in the union that makes Illinois look well managed. And you know Illinois, 4 out of the last 8 governors of Illinois have been in federal housing. You know that. That's prison. You know that, yeah. The big house. Yeah, if you ask an Illinois governor for their cell number, you're actually asking for their cell number. But I moved to California. I discovered that California is even more corrupt than Illinois. And that's why I'm running for governor, because there's 2 Californias. There's the California we have, and then there's the California we ought to have. And I got to tell you, this California we have now, what are we, the most taxed state in the country? But we also have the highest poverty rate. I mean, this is the golden state. This is the gold rush state. This is the state of dreams, right? And we have the #1 poverty rate. We have the most expensive housing, gasoline, water, electricity. As you might know, I am the chairman of the constitutional amendment to repeal the gasoline tax. We're going to get rid of that. We've already got almost the number of signatures that we need. We need a couple 100,000 more, and we're going to be on the ballot. And I got to tell you, that's going to be gone in November of 2018. Along with the Democrat governor, who's, is going to be gone as well. Yeah, amen to that one. But what has happened to this state? I mean, we used to have the best roads. We used to have the best education. And you know what's happened? It's crony capitalism. It's cronyism. It's corruption. It's the same things that I saw in Illinois. And we've got to take a stand against it. Now, my whole life, you need to know my whole background in politics especially. First of all, I'm a CPA. Any other accountants here? We're a wild bunch, aren't we? Yeah. I met a couple at the last meeting I had too. They were excited that another CPA was going to be possibly governor. I got my CPA when I was 20 years old. I always say that I graduated college in 2.5 years because I was paying for it. My daughters all took 5 years because I was paying for it. Yes, thank you very much. I started my first business when I was 24 years old, and I've been in business now for almost 40 years. I started buying apartment buildings when I was in my late 20s, and I now have apartment buildings. We have a property management company, 95 employees. So I'm a small businessman. And that's the essence of America, the idea that you can start small. It was just me and a secretary, and you keep building it up. But I don't know that dream is available in California anymore. And that's one of the reasons that I've always been a conservative Republican. I was on Jack Kemp's steering committee in 1987. Everybody remember Jack Kemp? Absolutely. When I was on his steering committee when one of my opponents was in junior high. So I've been a conservative Republican my whole life. I'm very proud of the fact, yes, Bill, that I've never given money to any Democrats. Yes, amen to that. Because I don't believe in the Democratic Party principles. That's all there is to it. I grew up a Democrat, by the way. My mom was a Democrat. You always grow up with, with what your mom does. But when you can think and process, I became a disciple of Jack Kemp. And why? Because he talked about opportunity. He talked about people who came to this country fleeing a corrupt government that kept them down, that gave away monopolies like Mexico does now, right? I mean, there's a reason people are coming to America. And Jack would always celebrate the fact that people from all over the world would wait in line, would risk their whole lives and fortunes to come to America. And that's because we obey the rule of law, right? We respect the rule of law. Do you see people waiting in line to go to Venezuela? Or Cuba? No. Or Mexico? No, they don't. Because they don't respect the rule of law. The rule of law is what gives opportunity to people who aren't well born. I wasn't well born. I wasn't born to some wealthy family like one of my opponents. I had to work for a living. But you know what? It was enriching to do that, and that's what America offers. So I started with Jack Kemp. I became one of the original members of the Club for Growth, which is Steve Forbes and Larry Kudlow and all those guys, Dr. Arthur Laffer. When I moved here to California, I was Newt Gingrich's finance chair in 2012. Yes, yes. And I spoke to the speaker this morning, as a matter of fact. He says hello. He's in Rome right now. As you might know, his wife is the ambassador to the Vatican. But the speaker was very complimentary of the reform efforts that I've been making as well, and really was encouraging to me. What he told me, by the way, is that he said that the ticket for the Republican Party to take back California is the gas tax repeal. Because this gas tax is horrendous, and people are very up in arms about it. And I gotta tell you, it's not just because we don't like to pay taxes, we also don't like waste and corruption. Because that's, in a nutshell, what Caltrans is. You know Caltrans, I mean, basically one of the most corrupt organizations in the whole country. Caltrans spends $4.50 for every dollar Texas spends to build a mile of road. Think about that for a second. 4.5, am I too loud? Oh. Okay, you work for Caltrans. Oh, that's why you don't want to listen to this. Well, I'm sorry, but you know what? We've got to build our... Yeah, oh yeah, it is true. Believe me, the Reason Foundation has done an exhaustive study of this. And Caltrans just isn't is not an efficient organization. And that to me is a waste, and it really hurts all of us. I mean, let's face it, the cost of living in California not only hurts our pocketbooks, but it hurts our opportunity. Businesses are leaving this state every single day. And that's the future for our children, isn't it? That's the future for the financial viability of our state, as a matter of fact, right? We've got to do something to address the tremendous cost of living in the state. And number one is housing. I mean, the housing crisis in this state is in everybody's budget, and it's in the state budget as well. I was just with a bunch of businessmen, men and women in Chico, and I told them, I said, the cost of housing is in every one of your budgets, because housing is the biggest cost in anyone's personal budget, right? So if you're paying 40, 50% of your income for your house or your rent, you've got to get paid more. And that's going to hurt your budget, which is going to hurt your competition with other businesses all over the rest of the country, right? California is basically becoming uncompetitive in the rest of the country and the world. And that just has to change. Well, one of the things that has to get done is to get rid of CEQA. Can I get agreement on that? The California Environmental Quality Act, which was signed by Ronald Reagan in 1970 and has been used by the trial lawyers to basically drive up the cost of housing. I can build apartments in Indiana, which is mostly where I'm at, for $80,000 a door. Here, in this area, it's $200,000 a door. In San Francisco, it's $700,000 a door. You can't exist as a state, as a viable state, with housing that's expensive, because it filters all the way through the economy. So what are we going to do about this? How are we going to win? I did a lot of polling before I decided to run for governor. I've been planning this for a little while. You know the number one issue on the minds of the voters all across the state, and I don't care if they're Republican, Independents, or Democrat, you know what the main issue is to people? Government corruption. It's not water, it's not jobs, it's not immigration, it's government corruption. And why? Because the voters know it permeates, it goes through everything that we do. It's in our cost of our housing, like I just said. It's in the cost of our gasoline and our health care and our water and our electricity. It's in the lost jobs and opportunity for our kids. It's government corruption. So I'm going to run a race that's all about going after government corruption and the corrupting influence of special interest money, because that's who owns Sacramento. That's the reason we have legalized marijuana now, because the marijuana growers just flooded Gavin Newsom with millions of dollars and are going to destroy our kids' minds along with it. They don't care about that as long as the almighty dollar gets in their pocket, right? That's what we have to stand up against, and I'm prepared to do it. So I'm going to get into the top two. We know that the state has a top two primary, right? So the way that I'm going to win, first of all, I put in $4 million of my hard-earned after-tax money to get this done. And that's what you see on Fox News. But we're also raising money, by the way. We now have almost 6,000 donations to this campaign. 6,000. Just to give you a little frame of reference, Cash Carey, the last Republican that ran for governor, for the entire campaign, he had only 1,300 donors. And we've already got 6,000. So we've got one back there too. There we go. Thanks, Mike. There you go. Appreciate that. We've got people all over the state that are hungering for change. So I'm going to get into that top two. And then when I'm in that top two and I'm sitting there on a debate stage with Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, is a guy who was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. You know the kind? You know, if Jerry Brown is the adult in Sacramento, Gavin Newsom is the teenager with a bottle of whiskey and the car keys. We can't let him anywhere near that governor's mansion, let me tell you. But when I'm on that stage with Gavin Newsom, you know, who is a walking special interest, I'm going to be able to tell the voters of this state that I've got an answer for the special interest corruption in Sacramento. I'm going at the unions, the trial lawyers, and the big businesses that are buying our state legislature, right? We've got the best state legislature money can buy, don't we, huh? And they do every single day. And they stay bought on top of it, yeah. But I'm on that stage with Gavin Newsom. I've got an answer for special interest corruption. And that's something everybody in this state is sick and tired of. Well, I'm telling you, I've had enough of the bad schools. I've had enough of the bad roads. I've had enough of the high cost of living. I've had enough of the crushing regulation on small business. I'm ready to do something about it, and I ask you to join me. I'm driven to get this done. I've taken action my whole life. You know, you're going to have a bunch of candidates who will give you all the rhetoric in the world, but it's about action. I bought a potato chip company in Chicago. I actually represented the family, and then I sold the company to Borden. Everybody remember Borden? You know, Elsie the cow? I sold this company to Borden for $30 million for the family. 7 years later, I bought it back personally for $10 million, which, by the way, explains why Borden doesn't exist any longer. Bad management. We turned that company around from a $17 million loss. Yes, Borden was losing $17 million on sales of $100 million a year. And we turned it into a $3 million profit in 1 year. Did I do it myself? No. I recruited a team. I recruited people who knew how to make the chips, who knew how to distribute them, who knew how to market them, who knew how to ship them. You know, you have to have a team around you, and that's what I plan on doing as the governor of the state. But that's what business people do. They recruit a team, and they solve problems, and they meet goals. And that's what I want to do in California. I'll leave you with this. There are now 19 states around the country that have businessmen as governors. 19. Doug Ducey down in Arizona, Pete Ricketts in Nebraska, Matt Bevin in Kentucky, Rick Scott in Florida. You saw him this last week, unfortunately, a lot. But there's one I want to point out to you, Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan is the governor of Maryland. Anybody know anything about Maryland? Maryland has a Republican registration of 20%, lower than California. And the governor of Maryland is a white-haired, kind of paunchy real estate guy like me. And he's a social conservative, just like I am. But you know how he got elected? He talked to people about affordability, about the tax burden, about the business climate, about the quality of life, about solving problems. And that's what I'm going to talk about as the candidate, as your candidate. I'm going to be representing your hopes and your dreams and your wishes and your memories of California as the Golden State. And together, let's make California the Golden State again. Thank you very much. I like getting a lot of questions, so please pepper me with questions. My staff always tells me, forget the stump speech, go right to the questions.
Yes. How do you intend to handle STRS and PERS?
Oh, the pension issue. I've drafted pensions in the private sector. I'm a businessman, and as a lawyer and a CPA, I've advised businesses on their pensions. Most of them switched, to 401ks. It's only governments that keep the defined benefit pension plans. And they're a disaster. And I tell you what, they're a disaster for a good reason. It's a wonderful reason they're a disaster in one sense, because I refuse to die. That's it. I don't know about you. I refuse to die. And that's the problem with pension plans. They pay you for the rest of your life. So we are going to have to restructure. We're going to have to switch to 401ks. We're going to have to get bigger contributions from employees. We're going to have to lengthen out retirement ages. But we're not going to be able to do that without getting something done about the influence of the special interest money on our state legislature.
But what about those of us? I worked 40 years under STRS.
Yeah.
I put my money in, my
I know.
employer put my money in, and the state came along and stole part of the funding. That's why they're in bad shape. Mm-hmm. I know people from PERS.
Yep.
There was a contract.
I know.
That's how I intend to make the living, for part of how I intend to make my living for the rest of my life.
I know.
How are you going to support that? Keeping the contract. Are you going to take it away from us?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm going to
Sounded like it.
No, I'm going to try to resolve it so that it gets paid. If you look at what happened in Detroit and a lot of other places, when they went belly up, the people like you really got killed. I mean, they lost half to 75% of their pensions. I want to prevent that from happening.
That's what I'm looking for.
Well, that's...
Like I said, I've already got 41 years into the pension, and I know a lot of other people that do.
And my mom was a school teacher, and she lived off a pension. And my stepfather was a postal worker, and he had a nice pension. You can't keep doing this. I got to tell you, the other problem is that we have a lot of people who are gaming the system. I mean,
Yes.
we have literally 100,000 retirees in California who are getting pensions of over $100,000 a year.
That's
almost
an issue.
That's almost
Out of the same
legal
fund.
theft. I mean, we've got people who are spiking their pensions, and fire chiefs. We love our firemen, but there's some communities that are paying 5 fire chiefs their pensions, and they're like $250,000 or $300,000 a year, and they're getting them at age 55 or something, and they can go off and get another job somewhere else. And the trouble is, we can't handle it. So that's all got to be resolved. But I'm in your
You
corner.
don't know how yet.
I just don't know the answers yet. We've got to, first of all, one thing we got to do is get the fat and waste out of the rest of the budget. I mean, if we get Caltrans to stop wasting money and spending $4.50, we'll have a lot more money to be able to deal with pensions and some of these other things. So rest assured, I'll be squeezing all the nickels I can there. Yeah. Well, I pinch nickels. There's an old expression about George Hallis. Mike Ditka said this about George Hallis. He throws around nickels like manhole covers. You ever hear that? That's what I am. I can't wait to get my hands in this budget and cut the fat and waste so that we can have money for your pension.
Got a question for you on the pot issue that he was saying earlier. You're anti-pot. So what are you going to do for California to stop, try to stop the pot industry from doing more damage than they already done and try to close them down?
Well, Gavin Newsom, with the marijuana growers and the millions, was able to get it passed. So it's a constitutional amendment, unfortunately. So the only way to do it is with another constitutional amendment. And I would be, very much in favor of doing that. I mean, I've been to Colorado. I've read the stories about Colorado, the increase in traffic accidents, the increase in robberies. I mean, we've had robberies in San Diego in broad daylight of people carrying cash. And it hasn't gotten rid of the black market. There's still a substantial black market. So it'll take another constitutional amendment, but that's going to take leadership. The last thing we want is Gavin Newsom in there to make sure it's solidified for the future. Thank you.
In your brochure here, you have your advocate for the Second Amendment.
Yes, sir.
Well, I happen to be a little bit on the history side, and I believe there's this, that California and all the rest of the states who are handling gun issues are doing it illegally. Because when you have a constitutional amendment federally, you have to have three quarters of all the states
Yep.
change it.
Yep.
Now, the federal government cannot change this law either. California cannot change it.
That's right.
But all of these knotheads are just running over us
I know.
on the gun control. Gavin Newsom is a #1 nut down there.
Absolutely, because he has no answer for the violence. The answer is the culture. Isn't it the truth? And the answer is publicizing the names of these people that do these monsters. They're all looking to be famous, aren't they? And I issued a press release after this last one in Florida. I said, let's just stop publicizing the names and pictures of these monsters. It may be a small thing, and maybe it's not going to win the day, but it's something, and we ought to be doing it. But go ahead, sir.
Well, what I want to infuse into this, the Second Amendment is very ripe in this state for getting a lot of money or a lot of people's attention.
I agree.
And I'm damn sure going to be in front of the line to help you.
It's the amendment that guarantees all the other ones, as far as I'm concerned.
That's exactly right.
Fidel Castro confiscated all the weapons. So did Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. I mean, for a very simple reason. They didn't want any opposition or any armed opposition. A lot of people scoff at that. They say, well, gee, we're a free country. Well, are we a free country because of the Second Amendment?
Yes.
I think we are. I agree with that.
Well, anyway, my wife and I were in Hawaii when Australia had all
Their
of
buyback?
their guns taken.
Yeah.
This couple,
That was a confiscation is what that was. Yeah.
The lady in the marriage was only 17 years old. She had to have the husband's permission to buy a corresponding steak knife. Now, that's how stupid all that is. Canada split itself over the gun control.
Yeah.
Western Canada told Eastern Canada to go jump in the creek.
Right.
And I think we're out west far enough that we can tell California and all these other people to jump in the creek.
You know what I'd say to...
Because we're going to have a civil war if we don't.
I know. What I'd say to any I respect to some extent, people who are afraid of guns. You know, let's face it, there's a lot of people that are afraid of guns. But you know what? We only have so much time. There's 350 million guns in private ownership. I sleep very well at night, by the way, knowing that there's 350 million guns in private ownership. I don't sleep well knowing that criminals get let out of jail and aren't kept in jail. I don't know about you. And by the way, one reason California keeps enacting propositions to reclassify felons and let people out of prison is because we can't afford to keep them there. It's $75,000 a year to house a prisoner. You could send him to Harvard for less. And that's the reason. And I got to tell you, that's what's making us less safe.
I want to thank you for being upfront on the number 2.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cox.
Yes.
I've been living in this area all my life, in this area, in Butte County mostly. And I remember when Governor Brown was governor before, from 75 to 83, and boy, did he stunk. And so I remembered when Governor Majan took over.
Sure.
And we elected him in 82, God bless. And he really turned things around. I remember Brown had some programs back then. Even they showed him driving his own car. You know, this Plymouth now is in the museum in Sacramento. And, but, sorry to ramble on, but.
Yeah. What's your question, sir?
I mean, would you ever contact Governor Duke Majan or Governor Pete Wilson maybe to have back you up?
I know Pete, by the way, because I was involved with Pete in the Mount Soledad cross. I don't know if you know that. There's a cross in La Jolla to honor our war dead. And I was involved in that effort, and I met Pete, and he offered me a lot of good advice. I will tell you this. I want to give you hope, by the way, all of you. And that is, if you really think about it, the last 50 years, go back to Reagan in '66, there's only one Democrat who's ever been successfully the governor of the state. And successful, I'll put in quotes.
That was Papa.
And that's Jerry Brown. I mean, Gray Davis was elected but recalled, right? So I don't count him. But if you look at it, the last 50 years, we've had 4 Republican governors who all served 2 terms. Reagan, a guy from Illinois, like me. Duke Majan, Wilson, who, by the way, a trivia question, was also born in Illinois.
Schwarzenegger.
And Schwarzenegger, who wasn't born anywhere, I don't know.
But
He was hatched somewhere by Maria Shriver, somewhere out of the Kennedy family.
Kennedy.
But we've had 4 Republican governors. Think about that. And you know why? The turnout is a lot less. This is the secret, by the way. Don't tell any Democrats. Any Democrats here?
I don't think so.
But not anymore. The Democrats, you know, the vote turnout goes way down. In 2016, Hillary got 8 million, but Donald Trump got 4.5 million. I got to tell you, 4.5 million votes. And I support the president, but you ought to know that I didn't vote for him because I was worried. I was a Ted Cruz guy. I wasn't sure that Donald Trump was going to be a conservative, and I had been burned by George W. Bush. By the way, it was a mistake. I love what the president's doing. I think it's great, and I support him 100%. I do. But Donald Trump got 4.5 million votes in this state. That is a lot of votes. And the turnout in 2018 is expected to be about 9 million. So I believe we have an excellent chance of getting this done in 2018 because I believe that there's a lot of people out there who want change, and we're going to give them that.
Yeah, I was asking you also, a year ago, we had the Orville Dam crisis.
Yeah.
And I live 20 miles from the dam.
Another boondoggle, yeah.
And I'm just south of it by 20 miles. And we had to evacuate, and Governor Brown did nothing about the dam.
No.
I mean,
Probably blamed it on global warming.
He's hid, even our own local media was shut out.
Yeah.
You can ask Mr. Preston. Our local media was just shut out, you know, from our area up north. And even Sheriff Honey, our sheriff, I mean, he was one of the best. He did the best job.
I got to tell you, Governor Brown joked about the fact that the Bay Bridge cost like 3 times more than it should have and was, 10 years late. I mean, that's a joke to these guys. I mean, it's our future and our money, and that's a problem.
Yep. But I mean, I'm just saying,
And the crazy train, that's the other
I
thing
hope
they
that,
joke about.
if you become governor, I hope that you'll fix the Orville Dam problem.
We will.
Thank you.
You very much. Appreciate that. Yes, Doctor?
Mr. Cox, I have a recurring nightmare about our last U.S. Senate race in California,
Yeah.
where we were locked out of the ballot.
Yes.
Has
Yes.
there been any discussion at the state Republican Party level of a pre-primary endorsement?
There is, and they are. They are going
They
to
are.
pre-primary endorse.
Okay.
And I'm working very earnestly to earn the endorsement of the Republican Party. You ought to know, I mean, I've been an active Republican my whole life now. I was president of the Cook County Republican Party. And no, that's Chicago, by the way. And no, we didn't meet in a phone booth. I always said it was a little bit like being the opposition leader to Saddam. But it actually prepared me for what I'm facing here in California. But I'm an organizing Republican. I want a big tent. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to the log cabins. I'm going to talk to all the groups. I'm on the board of the Lincoln Club, and I'm on the board. I'm involved with the New Majority because I want all Republicans to come together. We can't afford to lose any Republicans, but we need to unite around principles. And I'm never going to stray from my social conservative principles, but I'm going to emphasize the financial, the fiscal, the crushing regulation on small business, the affordability, and that kind of thing. Now, the top 2, let's talk about that really quickly, by the way. The Republican vote is expected to be about 35 to 40% in June. I intend to get the lion's share of that. That's why I'm putting money right now into TV and radio and getting out around the state, Facebook, and all this kind of thing. My young compatriot opponent is $300,000 in debt. I don't know that he's going to be able to do a whole lot with that. The other one, the local congressman, the former congressman here, has said he's not going to put any money in, and I don't know who's going to give him money when I'm sitting on $3 million right now. So, I mean, I don't know, and I'm going to spend it. I'm not going to just let it sit in an account. I'm going to get out and get the message out. And I think that's what's going to win this race. So I think I'll get that lion's share of that vote in June, and hopefully we won't have a split. By the way, to give you hope, there were 2 Democrats in 2016, 5, as Bill mentioned. There's 5 now, including a young lady who just got in, and if she was here now, I'd kiss her on the lips. No, I wouldn't do that. No, don't. The press, don't write that down, press. No. I'm glad. The more the merrier, right? The more Democrats, the better. They split the vote up, and that's a great thing.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cox. I have quite a few questions. I see you're a business owner, and I'm also a business owner with a partner here with the real estate. So as you know, a lot of businesses are leaving the States. And so what are you going to do about, incentives for business owners to stay in California? And second, as a mother, I would like to know what you are going to do to improve our schools, education.
Good.
We know it's kind of one of the worst right now in the U.S. And third, what are your plans in regards to sanctuary cities and immigration and all that? If you can please give us some information.
Okay, I'll tackle the easy one first. The first action I take as governor is to get rid of the crazy train. The second action right after that. The second action is to do what I can to get rid of the sanctuary state nonsense. Where does the Democratic Party get off being George Wallace? I don't understand that, right? I mean, George Wallace stood at the schoolhouse and said he wasn't going to respect federal law. I mean, the law, the rule of law is the thing that separates us from Cuba and the Soviet Union, right? I mean, we got a governor of a state who says right away, and people who want to be governor, like Newsom and Villagrosa, saying they're not going to respect the law. This is not a good start. This is chaos. Small business. I'm a small businessman. Regulation and the trial lawyers literally crush small business. We're going to get rid of the PAGA. You know what the PAGA is? The
No.
PAGA, it sounds like the plague, doesn't it? And it really is. It's the plague. It's not the plague of locusts. It's the plague of their cousins, the trial lawyers. Because the PAGA stands for the Private Attorney General's Act, which makes every trial lawyer, every blood-sucking trial lawyer in the state, frankly, and I'm a lawyer, I can say that. But it makes every trial lawyer in the state a private attorney general to go and sue businesses. And that's why this state is the #1 judicial hellhole in the country. And the regulation is crushing. Yes. I'm going to try to instill the attitude, and it's got to be attitudinal, that the government works for us, not the other way around.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. And finally, let's tackle education, because it's the same with healthcare. Where's our doctor? You know, doctors, educators, we all want to get paid based on our merit, based upon the quality of what we do. We don't want to work for the government. We don't want to work for a union. We want to work and get rewarded for the quality of the work we do. I think all of us feel that way. And I want teachers to get paid like rock stars and baseball players. I've always said that. Based upon their merit and how well they do. So I'm a big believer in school choice. I really am. I believe in competition in schools. I think if every parent had a voucher. I mean, you know, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton sent their kids to a wonderful private school, right?
Yes.
They didn't need a voucher, but, you know, parents do, and they don't have the same choices. So we got to make sure the key to education is to give everybody a chance, a voucher, which is also the key to affordable health care. Get the free market. When we put the power of health care in the hands of patients, not the government. I mean, I had a laugh. I saw an article in the Chronicle that said, oh, we got to get rid of these unfeeling insurance companies and give it all to the government. Really? You're going to switch one big bureaucratic entity, the insurance companies, and substitute another big bureaucratic entity, the government, and you want that to control your life and death and your future health care? I mean, that's just nonsense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at the VA.
Oh, yeah. A living, breathing example of government-run health care, the VA, absolutely. I mean,
How you doing, Mr. Cox?
horrible. No, I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm talking about the VA being horrible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, you keep hitting on one
And
thing.
then we'll make your gentleman friend, Roger, behind you, just the last one. Okay.
One of my big buttons, and that's corruption.
Oh.
You know, I sometimes feel because local politicians see what's going on in federal government, they can be corrupt and get
Yeah.
away with it. I'm above the law.
Right.
Just like what's happening now, nobody goes to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is,
Accountability.
Accountability.
Right.
Integrity.
Integrity.
You kind of hit on it as far as tort reform because,
Yeah.
you know, I used to look at the executive, legislative branch. I always knew they were corrupt, but to me it was the judicial that kept it all clean, and now we're seeing it get corrupted, and that's what I feel is happening in this state.
A lot of the judges are cronies of the trial lawyers.
Cronies and nepotism, yep.
They have to approve them. I don't know if you know that. The Bar Association is involved in approving the judges. So they make sure that the judges and the politicians are willing accomplices. And why? Because the trial lawyers make sure they fund the campaigns.
So my question is regarding tort reform, and how do you plan on working with a supermajority, or I don't know if they still have it, in our legislature,
Yeah.
working with Democrats? And that's my two questions.
Some of you may know that I'm not only running for governor, but I've also drafted a constitutional amendment to remake the election of the legislature. Now, some of my opponents are taking pot shots at it. Of course, they don't have an alternative reform plan. They just want to criticize what I'm trying to do. The trial lawyers, the unions control this state because these legislative districts are so large, their money and their manpower just overwhelms any efforts we make. And that's why we're suffering under a supermajority. We've got to get the power back in the hands of the people. And the neighborhood legislature would accomplish that. Newt Gingrich said that this idea was one of the most brilliant ideas he's ever heard of to change California. And it was endorsed by Bill Simon. Remember Bill Simon, the guy that ran for governor? So I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot during the governor's race because I'm running as a businessman, but I do have a reform of the legislature contemplated that I'm going to bring to the people as governor and try to get that cronyism and that corruption out of the legislature. In the meantime, I'm going to have a pen, a veto pen, a very big veto pen. And I'm going to use it. I'm going to probably wear my arm out using it. And I'm going to go to the people and try to talk to the people about putting pressure, just like Reagan did. You know, Reagan didn't have a Republican Congress.
He went to the people.
He went to the people. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and give speeches like this in a lot of places and get you to act. Thank you.
Don't forget your pen and your phone.
My pen and free. Yeah, the pen and the phone, right.
Just a couple points on marijuana.
Yes, sir.
For your benefit and everybody here. We have an environmental and an economic disaster in California. The county of Calaveras, if you're not aware, they have a study called Cultivating Disaster. You can get it online. It's silentpoison.com. It's an excellent study, and what they showed is in one county with 1,200 grow sites, they have contamination from poisons used in pesticides and fertilizers that are seeping into the ground.
Really, that are going in the soil and the water table.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's going into the watershed
Wow.
that feed 3.5 million people.
Wow.
And Calaveras County only has 1,200 grow sites. We've got 50,000 in California.
Wow.
I went to Siskiyou County a couple weeks ago to talk to the sheriff. They've got 2,000 illegal drug trafficking organizations there that suck up 3 million gallons of water a day
Wow.
and contaminate what's left. So we are about to present an invoice to Governor Brown for about $50 billion.
Wow.
If you don't like the gas tax, you better watch this one because
Wow.
Calaveras County said it would take over $2 billion to clean up that county alone. This state, I think the only thing that's going to save this state, I've been working on President Trump.
Yeah.
We need to return to the rule of law.
Yeah,
And you are
definitely.
absolutely correct that we have corruption from the highest level.
Yeah.
It started out with Gavin Newsom, but I think it was 2014, March 2nd, U.S. News interviewed Governor Brown, said, what do you think about the proliferation of marijuana? He said, how many people can be stoned and we still have a great state and a great nation? Okay.
Really?
4 days later,
Unbelievable.
4 days later, out-of-state billionaire Sean Parker and his wife contributed $81,000 to his campaign, and now he's been leading the charge ever since.
Right.
This whole thing is so corrupt.
Yep.
I want you to know also that I was following the CEQA deal on marijuana
Yeah.
and trying to get answers is because the Bureau of Cannabis Control came out and issued a negative declaration for the whole state, saying that additional cultivation would have no significant environmental impact. Are you
Really?
kidding me? And so
Fake news? Should we say that?
I found out about it on December
Wow.
14th, the 30th day, and there's a statute of limitations. So try to find an attorney in 5 minutes notice. I couldn't get one, so I did it pro se. I filed an action against the state,
Good
and
for
we're
you.
still negotiating, incidentally. They're saying I filed it a half a day late, and I said the reason I did is you withheld the information, but there's much bigger fish to fry here.
Yep. Yep.
So I said we're going to amend the complaint. I've got a lot of people from one end of the state to the other to join, and we're going to try to ask for an emergency declaration in about 2 weeks when we give them the invoice. If they turn that down, which they probably will, then it's going to go the next step, and we're going to ask for an injunction to stop the whole thing. We're killing our state. We're killing the people in it.
Definitely. Our priorities are just, it's all about the special interest money.
It is.
And that's marijuana writ large.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of those problems too. I agree
Yeah.
with you.
So
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Get involved. Be one of those 6,000 people. Add to the 6,000 people who donated to the campaign and This is a team effort. If we all pitch in, we can get this done. I'm telling you, I am working 24/7 to get this done. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
John.